of religion on politics. And then later on, matters education, because that has to happen as well. We'll be having permanent secretary in the Department of Tvet, that is Dr. Esther Thar Moria, and Gideon Murenga, who is the Tvet National Coordinator GIZ Kenya. Heavy discussions to look out for. But it's looks like a holiday. Vivian, here in the city.
It's quite the holiday feeling, yeah. I have to say, which is wrong to say because it's not really a good time for the country, because people are really not sure of what is happening. And I just hope that each and every one of you will stay safe. And for those who will take to the streets, kindly make it peaceful. We want a peaceful nation. If we make this nation fall, or if we set it on fire, it will be upon us. It will be all on us. So we need to take care of our country. Now, later on the show, I will be holding a discussion on the topic of accelerating economic growth and development for arid and semi-arid lands, where I will be joined by Dr. Rose Ngugi, who is the Executive Director, Kenya Institute for Public Policy Research and Analysis. You want to tune in for that. Good morning, Regina.
Good morning to you. Being the 19th of July, yes, a day that has been highly anticipated, especially in the political echelons there, with conversations raging between what government is saying vis-a-vis what the opposition seemingly will be saying. But this is my clarion call, especially to journalists who are going to be covering the said demonstrations. No story is worth your life. Kindly be safe. We have seen, incidences where journalists who've been covering, and part of their duty, being the societal guard dog as well as a watchdog, and the role is to inform you on what is happening on ground, lose their valuables, their tools of trade, cameras and such, as well as their personal belongings, and worse, get hurt in the melee. Journalist to journalist, let's be safe. There's no story that is worth your life. We'll be keeping tabs on what is going to be happening at a time when we have the Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki issue a statement there that saw the primary schools and secondary schools, especially those that are operating actually it's a day going home, stay home until further notice. And this is going to be the resumption of learning is going to be made by the Ministry of Education. In how many counties? 3. Mombasa, Kisumu, and Nairobi. Stay safe. We have that and so much more as we proceed in matters in the headlines. And we start off with that issue where the government says it will use all legal means possible to protect the lives and property of Kenyans. In a meeting held in State House, Nairobi, the cabinet noted that the security situation in the country in relation to the violent anti-government protests that have been witnessed in the past days associated with the opposition, and vowed to deploy all mechanisms to ensure safety of Kenyans. The meeting also approved a radical bill that will enhance powers of the Financial Reporting Center.
As calls to hold a meaningful dialogue between the government and the opposition continues to grow louder by the day, the cabinet led by President William Ruto has come up with a raft of solutions geared towards containing the planned protest by the opposition in the coming days. In a meeting held at State House Nairobi, the Kenya Kwanza administration has prioritized protecting the lives of Kenyans and their property in an effort to mitigate the security threat posed by the planned demos. While in the same meeting, Cabinet approved the draft Anti-Money Laundering, Combating of Terrorism Financing Laws Amendment Bill that will enhance powers of the Financial Reporting Center FRC. If enacted by Parliament, the Anti-Money Laundering Agency will have the power to request for the revocation of a reporting institution's license. The bill enhances the penalties for violation of declaration of cross-border currency, aligning them with the Financial Action Task Force standards. Moreover, the cabinet also gave a nod to a tree planting and nurturing program in learning institutions across the country. Further, the cabinet approved the Climate Change Amendment Bill, signaling Kenya's commitment to strengthening its involvement in carbon markets.
We'll be looking at the ripple effect of that particular change in as far as the Financial Reporting Center is concerned. in times when we've been talking about money laundering, or rather illicit trade that is funding crime within the country. Now, still keeping up with what is happening in the political scene in light of the planned demos that are to take place today, the opposition has termed the protest today as a Sufuria movement aimed at putting pressure on the government to lower the cost of living. The Azimio group says its protest will be peaceful and in no way laced with political ambitions.
The Azimio coalition is now changing tact in its protests, claiming the Wednesday demos will be the beginning of Sufuria movement to allegedly push the government.
We ask Kenyans to come out of their homes and bang sufurias, pots and pans to signify lack of food. The Sufuria movement kicks off tomorrow and continues until the battle is won. At that hour of midday, we also call on motorists to stop wherever they are on the highways and roads and to hoot and flash lights in support of this movement.
The opposition leaders crying foul, claiming security officers have been withdrawn from its leaders, exposing them to imminent dangers.
Mine was called to Nairobi, he has not come back, he has not communicated to me. But I believe he's doing the right thing once he's released, because it's a right. By the way, security for leaders is not a favor.
I have not been communicated to by anybody in Nairobi, and I do not know what they are up to.
It is expected that a decision is taken to maintain, enhance, reduce the security curve of officers based on intelligence about threats, perceptions faced by these public figures.
What is required of us is just to give a notice that we'll be having a procession. We have given adequate notice. It is their duty to ensure that no criminal elements infiltrate the protests and turn them violent.
The group claiming the protest to take place in 3 venues within the city will be peaceful.
In Nairobi, we will have 3 convergence points: Joseph Kang'ethe grounds, Kamukunji grounds, Jacaranda grounds. Let us meet in the Kamukunjis across Kenya tomorrow, on Thursday and Friday. Aluta continua.
This as ambassadors and high commissioners called for dialogue between the opposition and the government to avert disruption of livelihoods.
But it's the same envoys who are also bound by the resolutions of the UN Human Rights Center in Geneva. So these are some of the things that we will share with the envoys, and we expect them also not to be partisan in any way.
Security has been beefed up across the country ahead of the scheduled protests set to kick off Wednesday. This as a section of political leaders remain divided on way forward to address the cost of living and at the same time maintain peaceful coexistence in the country. Irene Mchuma Udim, Channel 1 in the county of Nairobi.
Security assured there, and if you have made your way to the Central Business District, you must have seen that, well, there's not much traffic, despite it being the hour where majority of Kenyans have to drive in or use public vehicles to get into the CBD that hosts over 85% of Nairobi's workforce. We'll be keeping tabs on how the day proceeds there, with an assurance from government of security on this day that the opposition-led anti-government demonstrations is to kick off, supposedly to push up until Friday. Still keeping up on that beat, the Law Society of Kenya is urging the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition to hold protests devoid of violence and destruction of property. LSK Chairman Eric Theory has said the demos will lose meaning if they're not held in a peaceful manner. Maendeleo Wanawake has also called for a truce between the two seemingly warring sides. Give us on Minor now reports.
Law Society of Kenya on Tuesday raised concerns over the violence and lawlessness witnessed during the opposition-led protests held last Wednesday.
It is crucial to note that the right to protest peacefully does not permit individuals the right to engage in violent or destructive behavior.
LSK Chairman Eric Theuri also castigated the police for what he terms as use of excessive force in dealing with protesters.
The policing of protests must seek to facilitate peaceful assembly, and any use of force must be guided by the principles of legality, necessity, proportionality, and professionalism to avert heightening tensions.
While offering to mediate, the LSK challenged the two warring sides to dialogue and avoid the grandstanding.
By engaging in national dialogue, we can identify concrete steps and systemic reforms necessary to bring about lasting change.
Adding their voice to the matter, the Maendeleo Wanawake also called for President William Ruto and Raila Odinga to engage in bipartisan talks for the larger good of the country.
To the former Prime Minister, His Excellency Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, we humbly request you, sir, that you reach out to the President for dialogue, as it is the only way to navigate the challenges at hand and going forward for this nation.
On his part, National Chairman Kenya School Heads Association Kahi Ndimuli has urged the president and the Azimio leader to resolve their issues raised amicably. Ndimuli says if the protests are held for 3 days as planned, secondary and primary schools will lose close to 20 and 14 learning hours respectively.
Police should restrain in releasing any tear gas in a learning institution. Let's protect our institutions.
In Mombasa, Azimio-affiliated leaders have also vowed to push on with demonstrations despite the withdrawal of security officers for opposition leaders.
And we want to tell the police through IG Kome that they will be accountable personally. They will be accountable personally. It is not the Kenya Police National Police Service.
Meanwhile, Yale MP Hassan Omar and leaders affiliated to Kenya Kwanza Coalition have called on Mombasa residents to shun their planned protest, terming them as selfish and not being done in the interest of ordinary Kenyans.
Maendeleo yaliyofanywa na William Ruto yanadhihirika, ile msingi wa maendeleo ambao ameweka. Na pia wapeani wa ujumbe watoto wenu wasitoke kwa hayo maandamano. Nyinyi mkikataa na wao watakataa.
Schools, primary schools that are, operating as, days primary schools and secondaries in Kisumu, Mombasa and Nairobi are to be closed today ahead of those demos that commence today. Now, small-scale traders within the city and neighboring counties want the opposition to reconsider its planned street demos as the country is hurting. The traders say the escalation of demonstrations 3 days a week will only deny them their daily bread, but will also increase the burden of high cost of living.
In Nairobi, small-scale traders decried the losses occasioned by the protests called by the Azimio coalition last week Wednesday. The traders calling on the opposition chief Raila Odinga to call off the 3 days demos slated to begin Wednesday, claiming they would cripple the sources of livelihood.
Sisi ni watu ambao wameumia kwa sababu ya maneno ya maandamano. Na leo, siku ya leo, inasemekana kwamba kesho kutakuwa na maandamano. Sisi tumeona hatutakaa chini tuangalie biashara zetu zikiharibiwa kama hatufanyi jambo.
Hii maandamano inakuja kila wakati. Last time walibeba viatu zangu zote. Mimi sikuuza. Ni vile tu nilijificha na polisi. Tu ndio nilienda kwa nikajificha. Juu ningepigwa.
The traders who also presented a petition to the Muthaiga police station seeking to be allowed to camp outside the home of a prominent family claim the protests are being bankrolled.
Wamama hapa hawatafanya kazi siku 3 kwa sababu tu uko na pesa mingi ya kutumia vibaya. Uko na pesa mingi ya familia ya kutumia vibaya. Sisi tunakuomba na tutaenda hapo kwa amani tuongeleshe mama mstaafu.
Serikali wametujengea masoko na make sure kila kitu inaendelea vizuri. Sasa sisi tunataka kusimamisha hao machief financer waache kufinance hawa watu wa maandamano.
In Thika, a section of youth has rejected the anti-government protests, claiming they have previously occasioned the losses of lives and destruction of property. They're appealing to police to help in protecting lives and property.
Sisi vijana hapa tunataka amani. Na sisi tunataka tupewe freedom ya kufanya biashara zetu. Na sisi tunasema ile kitu tunahitaji kwa hii nchi yetu ni maendeleo, sio maandamano.
Tunaomba former prime minister atupatie nafasi, apatie serikali nafasi ifanye kazi, na mimi niko na imani na hii serikali.
Biashara yetu inaharibiwa. Mimi biashara yangu nimetafuta na miaka kama 10 ama 20. Inaharibika na dakika moja. Nikashikani wanatuambia kesho tutakuwa.
In Murang'a, residents and traders at Mukoyo Market have condemned the 3-day planned demonstrations, terming them as a scheme to dismember the country. The traders claim they have suffered immense losses when protests are held in Nairobi.
Tunasikia vibaya sana kwa kuwa watoto wetu wanakufa bure.
Watoto wetu ndio tunatupa hapa Mukoyo. Makazi yetu mmerorongano ikiingia, biashara zetu ndio inapotea. Ningeomba sana hiyo yote iishe na serikali ijue vile itaisha, kwa sababu mwananchi wa kawaida hakuna chochote anaweza kujifanyia.
Serikali kuu na serikali dogo, mambo ya maandamano katika Kenya mzima ikatae kabisa.
And a section of Nyahururu residents and traders have called on the government to quell the planned demonstrations scheduled for Wednesday. They want the opposition to call off demos and allow the government to work on delivering its pre-election pledges.
Mheshimiwa Deto Moreithi wakiwa na Caroline, sisi wana Laikipia hatutaki maandamano hata kamwe. Juu tumeona youth wengi wetu wamekufa huko Nairobi.
Tuache kukubali kutumika katika maandamano, sababu ukipigwa huko nje ama uwawe hautaona hao watu wa siasa.
Toka president wetu William Samoei Ruto achaguliwe hajafikisha miaka yake 5, lakini tunaona tu mabadiliko bado.
Sixteen more bodies have been exhumed from Shakahola forest in Kilifi County, bringing the total death toll as for now to 419. Coastal Region Commander Rhoda Onyancha, during her daily briefing, said the total of 95 people have so far been rescued from Shakahola forest. 37 people are in police custody in connection with aiding the controversial preacher Paul Mackenzie. And DNA samples taken from relatives so far have hit 258. Mackenzie, who is in police custody, is facing several charges of human rights violation, including murder. Now to the corridors of justice. Chief Justice Martha Koome has appointed a three-judge bench to hear the petition challenging the Finance Act of 2023. Presiding Judge David Majanja, Justices Lawrence Mugambi and Christine Meoli are now expected to set a date to hear the matter. The petitioners in the case, Busia Senator Okiya Mtata and 6 others, are challenging the High Court to stop the implementation of the Act.
The constitution of a three-judge bench consisting of Judge David Majanja, Justices Lawrence Mugambi and Christine Meoli sets in motion for the hearing of the petition challenging the Finance Act 2023 and the eventual determination of the case filed by Busia Senator Okiya Mtata and 6 others claiming its passage in Parliament was unprocedural and that it will affect many Kenyans who are already overburdened by the current cost of living. High Court Judge Justice Mugure Thande temporarily suspended the implementation of the Finance Act on 30th of June 2023. Elsewhere, Sharon Otieno's murder case in which former Migori Governor Okoth Obado, Michael Oyamo and Caspelo Biero are charged continued Tuesday. Chief witness in the murder of Sharon Otieno has told the court that the former Migori boss Okoth Obado did not deny having a relationship with Sharon and that he only complained of the high lifestyle the deceased was demanding from him.
You had said she sent you? She sent a message. And that message stated what?
Stated the total amount, 20 to 25 million.
The court had that the late Sharon Otieno demanded to be recognized as the second wife of the former Migori Governor Okoth Obado and insisted on living the standards of a governor's wife.
Sharon still demands 20 to 25 million Yes, please go down.
The court also heard that the governor refused to give in to Sharon's demands.
He requested me if I can persuade the lady to look for a plot to build her a three-bedroom house, which can cost maybe 3 to 4 million.
Sharon's mother, who was to take to the stand as the 28th witness, failed to do so after she became too emotional. With the whole day testifying by the key witness in the murder charges facing the then Migori governor Bado, his detailed report will either persecute or exonerate the then governor. From Milimani Law Courts, I'm Ruth.
To business. Now, Kenya will receive more than 140 billion shillings from the International Monetary Fund to deal with failing forex stockpiles and address climate change-related challenges. IMF further says it has approved the extension of the extended fund facility and the extended credit facility that was signed in 2021. The facility will now lapse in April 2025. The Washington-based lender is also prodding the National Treasury to complete the tax administration and management reforms, as well as a fiscal consolidation process as part of the reform agreement reached upon in 2021.
According to the International Monetary Fund, the board has already completed its 5th review under Kenya's Extended Fund Facility and Extended Credit Facility, which were agreed in 2021 when Kenya was facing serious economic headwinds occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic and debilitating supply chain disruptions. Following the completion of the review, the International Monetary Fund will immediately disburse a total of 58.1 billion shillings to the Kenyan government. To implement green financing policies and address climate-resilient projects, the IMF has further approved a 20-month arrangement under the Resilience and Sustainability Fund. The total amount to be disbursed under the Resilience and Sustainability Fund now stands at 77.2 billion shillings. In a statement, IMF Deputy Managing Director Antoinette Sayer says the latest decision would allow Kenyan authorities to continue addressing such challenges, sustain market confidence, promote growth, and advance ongoing reforms. The IMF has applauded Kenya's progress in implementing economic reforms, despite facing the worst drought in decades, as well as a challenging external environment. Sayer further says approval of Kenya's fiscal 2023-2024 budget and the 2023 Finance Act were crucial steps needed to support ongoing consolidation efforts.
How about that short break as we continue sampling your take in regard to the Maandamano protests that are set to take off, or rather kick off today all the way to Friday. We'll be sampling at the tail of this particular broadcast. A quick breather, we'll be back.
Goodness. They escaped and left Sergio behind.
What can he do to me, huh? Kill me? I know he's capable of it, but I'm not afraid of him. He doesn't scare me, Mother. Anyway, I'm glad he's suffering.
You have to put that girl in her place. You can't just allow her to show us disrespect in that way. You better show her who the man of the house is.
I am here to make sure these cases are solved. Let me start with you. Las Bandidas.
I'm gonna love you when you're here with me, and love you when you're gone. Do what you want, as long as you're with me. Say what you want, as long as I hear you.
So mommy, hold on.
Make me lie when I don't want to. Make someone else some kind of unknowing fool. Make me stay.
You're still watching in the headlines. Now, Institution of Engineers of Kenya and the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, among other professional lobby groups, are advocating for a reduction in taxes and levies on electricity to reduce the overall retail cost of electricity. They're also calling for investments in improving the quality of electricity supplied to customers.
How do we ensure KPLC is cheaper to the extent business will find it expensive to generate their own power? It's only through some of these proposals and measures that we are proposing that we reduce some of these taxes and levies so that we ensure that even the operation cost of KPLC is a bit lower, so that now industry will consider using power from KPLC, and if we are consuming more as we are generating, then the cost is distributed over many customers, and also the cost now comes down.
Thermal production starts at 13%, and that's where the one that we are asking, can it be reduced from 13% to 10%, and then that 3% goes to the renewable energy production, and these are the geothermal production, and then that gets to 90%, and this is going to make the power production in the country more greener and less costly.
We also need to be concerned about the quality of power also, that the prices could go down, but I think it's also good to support the sector to ensure that the quality doesn't go down.
So now that's a very, very serious problem. How, and it takes us back to involvement of government officers, because there is nobody in their right mind can get Kenyans into this kind of agreements. There must be a hand of power for people in this particular kind of agreements. How do you sign? And we are not talking about little monies. We are talking billions. You tell people, I'm going to install this thing, and whether you buy or not, it doesn't matter. You are going to pay everything either way. It just shows some people who want to make money, and those people can only be connected people.
The discussion on the cost of electricity there, it is also affecting the high cost of living, with not only the Kenya Association of Manufacturers calling for a review, but also households there. We'll be keeping tabs on that. Just remember to be safe. Government has promised to make it safe for your business and for you as a person. But at the end of the day, especially to my fellow journalists and fellow colleagues, actually, just remember there's no story that is worth your life. I'm Regina Manyora. I live in the able hands of Vivian as well as Victor Olo as they tackle candid matters around what is happening politically as well as what is happening across the country in other areas. Keep your views coming. Our Twitter handle is at KBC Channel 1. What's your take over the planned demos that are to take place today all the way to Friday? I'm Regina Manyara. Good day.
All right, so thank you, Regina. Let's take a look at what we have on our traffic right now. And the Nairobi CBD is looking pretty fine as far as this is concerned. If you're coming to the city, now this is a general outlook, how it looks like. One, if it's green, it's moving pretty fast. That is how it looks like. That's the general outlook of the Nairobi city, the traffic. We can pick from anywhere, everything still looking great. That is Thika Road. All right, let me go there. Thika Road, bigger pardon there, okay. Okay, so if you're using Thika Road, still okay. That is where it all starts. And we are using this particular path coming down to Ngara, all moving okay. It's complete departure from what you usually witness here in the CBD. That is the Muthaiga, all the way from the DCI, that's Kiambu Road, still looking pretty fine. There's always a problem at the Muthaiga Square there, joining that interchange and ultimately into the CBD via Ngara or Globe roundabout. And that is where the situation is always is. But as it is today, it's looking all fine. So, of course, we all know the reason why. And perhaps a few people, one or two, either you're going to the airport or coming to pick someone in town, you have your time to come to the CBD because it's all moving very well. Okay, that is Nairobi. How about Kisumu? Kisumu is also looking very good. Let me start with inbound from the sides of Ahero, coming from Ahero, Rabur, all looking very good. Coming to Nyamasaria, the Kisumu, Nyalenda, all that place looking okay until you come to the CBD around Kisumu, boys. This place is always very busy. The city center and outbound, going towards the airport, also looking okay. How about those people coming all the way from We Got Gardens, that side of Riyadh Hills, also moving pretty well as you come towards Kondele, roundabout, and ultimately into the CBD, looking fine. What about the lake? Yeah, there's no traffic at the lake, clearly. The blue patch there, on a lighter note though. So that's as far as Kisumu is concerned. Let's cross over to Mombasa. Mombasa also looking very, very good. There's always a very big problem as you use Nyali Road from the Pirates Beach or the Jomo Kenyatta Public Beach, as you may want it. Leo iko sawa, watu Mombasa imekuwa vipi leo baba? So that's how it looks like. Coming down to Bamburi, all the way to Nyali Center. And personally, I think there's that issue there. Look around there. Kongowea Market, Kengeleni, and Lights also looking fine. So as far as that's concerned, it's looking fine as far as traffic in our major cities is concerned. That is what we have on our traffic today, and that is how it looks like here on Good Morning Kenya. Okay, before I introduce my guest who are already in studio, I have today I want us to talk about matters, politics and religion. What is the position of religion on our politics, and what's the role that religion should play in politics, in as far as politics is concerned. Where we are today, we need to get it going. And that is why my guests are already in studio. Perhaps we get to introduce themselves. And for the first time on television, we have privilege to have the new provost of the All Saints Cathedral, Reverend Canon Evans Omolo, on set with us here. Canon, welcome to Good Morning Kenya.
Thank you very much, Victor, and a very good morning to Kenyans watching.
Karibu sana. And with us here also is Sheikh Salim Charo, who is a member of the National Muslim and Leaders, Namlef, if I got it right.
Yes.
Karibu sana as well, Sheikh.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Karibu sana. We'll be getting into that discussion very fast. But just to get your voices, starting with you, Sheikh, now that you're the last to speak. How is Kenya, generally?
I think from what we can see, and we've seen from the past weeks, the first, I don't know, the first instance where there were demonstrations, and currently now what we're experiencing, I don't think we are heading in the right direction. And it's matter of concern. We really need to, see how we are going to save our country.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Canon, your take. Where are we as a nation?
I think, Victor and Kenyans watching, we are in, I would say in the strongest term possible, we are in a terrible state, potentially in the ICU, and I think Kenya needs quick and immediate remedy, without which we are going to lose this country.
Yeah. Okay. Very well. Allow me to take you through the front page, only the front page of our local dailies on the Standard. Kenya on Edge. Based on what you gentlemen have said, Kenya on Edge, that is on the front page of the Standard newspaper. That is what we have here. And of course, the country is staring at a series of protests that will paralyze business, schools, and normal lives of Kenyans. From Wanjiku to the international community, all eyes are on the president and opposition leader to come with a solution, and fast. All right, that's on the front page of the Standard. What about the front page of the Star newspaper? Azimio tells of Envoys affirms 3-day protest. Azimio tells of Envoys affirms 3-day of protest. Opposition says that the diplomats have for months turned a blunt eye to police brutality. That is what is on the front page. Of course, we have U.S. Ambassador Meg Whitman, we have Netherlands Envoy, we have got UK Charge of Affairs, and of course, finally, German Ambassador, all of them raising their concern. And finally, on the front page of the Daily Nation, Azimio demos on as True's bid flops. Azimio demos on as bid flops. All-day primary and secondary schools in Nairobi, Mombasa, and finally, as at yesterday, Kisumu are ordered to close. That is the information that was sent out from the Ministry of Education. So according to the Azimio, they are pushing for dialogue. Diplomats are also, and even the religious leaders who are also here, and business leaders call for dialogue, peaceful protests. That is as per the Article 37. As per the working day, President Ruto set to launch 1.5 billion shillings water project in Kericho today. So that is a complete departure. It's a working day for the president. Maandamano does not stop him from going about his business. And finally, security assurance, that is from the CS for Interior, urging those wishing to engage in protest to do so within the law. He also encouraged Kenyans to go about their businesses normally. That is on the front page of our local dailies. So, gentlemen, this is it. And I'm also glad that this newspaper has called on the religious leaders, the business community, as well as other leaders for a truce, but it's not coming. Canon, this is not something new to us. We've witnessed a situation before in 2002, 2007, and now we are here back again. Allow me to ask you this question. What is the position of the religious leaders on politics?
Thanks, Victor. I think it's pretty clear, and I know Sheikh will affirm this, that from the religious front, it's very simple and very clear. Our call for our national leaders is to tone down the political rhetoric, restrain from chest thumping, and seek to sit down and talk. There is nothing restraining the contending sides of the political divide to sit down and talk. Genuinely, we as religious leaders acknowledge that there are problems bedeviling this country, and those problems cannot be resolved through media exchanges. They cannot be resolved by press briefings. They cannot be resolved by maandamanos. Those problems can be resolved when leaders sit down and engage and discuss and agree. And as religious leaders, we have been willing, through our superiors, to mediate and to birth a reconciliation.
Okay. One thing that is for sure, that religious leaders also play a very key role. Sheikh, we cannot underestimate the role religious leaders come to play in a situation like this. What is your position?
Okay, thank you very much. I think from what we've experienced in the past, the same politicians are also followers of a certain religion, and this means that they should listen to religious leaders and because the call that we are making and the appeal that we are making to them is not for any personal gain, but generally is to save the country. And I think I'll quote what the late Professor Saitoti says, that there come a time that a country will be more important than an individual. And just like Reverend mentioned, this is not the time to just thumb and so on and so forth, because we've seen destruction of property, we've seen loss of lives, and it's high time they listen to the religious leaders, because when religious leaders talk, it's not their voices, that's the voice of God. Yeah.
Okay. It's been, even in the past, that at a time like this, we call on religious leaders. But why is it that politicians do not call on the religious leaders when things are calm? Why now? When the situation is now, we are moving on the edge, and this is a point now we are running to religious leaders. Does it mean that you're put as a point of last resort? Point of afterthought? Sheikh?
This is something I've also mentioned in one of my interviews in the past, because we should be, on the table to discuss all these matters. But, religious leaders have been, left out, and, when things get, when things go south, definitely that's when, everyone is where the religious leaders. And from this point, I know there are efforts which are being made, that they're trying to reach out to the national leaders, both national leaders, the retired and the retired Prime Minister and the current President. And I think it's something, because it's something that we really need to be, to put forward, because we are a religious country.
Yes.
We are 98% religious, so we belong to a certain faith. And when we get to a point where we don't want to listen to religious leaders, it's like, what we are trying to say is you don't want to listen to what God says, because religious leaders are interpreters of the God's word. Thank you.
And Canon, I'm so sure you've interacted with the politicians a lot. You would imagine the kind of call and whatever is running through the minds of Kenyans right now, that the sense of uncertainty that we have right now, we don't know whether it's going to continue for the next 3 days or the opposition is going to call it off tomorrow. But I'm trying to imagine, what do you really think runs through the head of the president and Raila Odinga? Because these are the two big boys as far as this is concerned. Yes.
Victor, when you look at the situation and you analyze these two protagonists, these two characters that you've mentioned, there are people that we know in other spaces and other circumstances. They have come out to be selfless, and they've demonstrated a sense of humanity. And without a doubt, I believe the president, where he sits, he knows that the country is headed the wrong direction. I know where Honorable Raila is now. He knows that what's going on in the country is wrong. The problem that I sense from where I sit is that there is a bit of selfishness that is intruding into their spaces with self-seeking politicians who push them to hold this firm stand without looking at the bigger picture.
The so-called hardliners.
The hardliners who don't want to see. Because politics is about interests, it's about power, it's about control of the economy. And there's a battalion of politicians around them, both around Raila and around His Excellency the President.
Yes.
And they want to further their interests. They will tell them, Mheshimiwa Rais, simama kidete. Don't push back. We must teach this guy a lesson.
Yes.
On the other side, Raila's guys are telling him, Jacob, you must stand there and there. We must teach this guy a lesson.
Yeah.
And I think, Victor, for me, that's where the problem is. If we left those two to make their independent decisions without undue influence, tomorrow you'll see Ruto and Raila sitting down and saying, Bwana, sasa ni nini inafanyika hapa?
Yeah.
Let's agree to work together.
But at the end of the day, if we leave alone the personalities, I mean, Azimio is also raising a number of issues. The cost of living, some of them are can be attained immediately. Some of them are long-term. But I'm just trying to imagine, Sheikh, because at the end of the day, if we leave alone the two big boys, as I call them, there's some salient issues that should be addressed as a nation. And so how do we go about them without necessarily going to the streets?
Yeah, I think, you know, the issues that Azimia is raising are valid because we've experienced, you know, high cost of living.
Yes.
And it's only that it lacks a bit of consistency because you remember last year in November, you know, the call for demonstration was based on, you know, the Cherera 4. And then over the Nini, it was about the IBC, and then the Unga Nini came in, and now we are at the bipartisan, and now we are talking of Finance Act. So, you know, there is no consistency in it, but even though okay, I may interpret as, you know, maybe they are taking advantage of the situation so that they may achieve their, you know, their personal interest, you know, as Reverend has mentioned, because politics is, you know, it's about interest. So because they want to, you know, to be seen that they are on the side of Kenyans, and for them to achieve, you know, their personal gain. So, but generally, what we have to, you know, to say is that number one, they should look at, you know, what is more important, what are the priorities first, because, you know, we cannot continue like this as a country, and when we're talking of the economic situation generally in the country, we are not only we are not the only ones or the only country that is facing the same. So all the countries we've seen, you know, Ukraine, Russia, you know, conflict, and so many other, you know, factors that are also contributing to, you know, to what we're experiencing. So I think it's high time that as politicians they be realistic, and you know, they try to address what can be addressed immediately, and you know, whatever is long term, at least we give it time, because when we talk of, for instance, food security, just the other day it has been raining, so maybe this month or later this month, people will be maybe harvesting. At least that will, you know, it's not something that you can, you know, have by going on the street. Yes. You know, and but generally they need to sit down. They need to bring their heads together. And we've seen the former Prime Minister have really sacrificed in the past, you know, and I believe they've also worked together with the president. So there are people who can sit down and talk about the priorities.
The president the other day said that I've worked with him, so now najua vizuri sana.
Exactly. So they should, you know, stop all this, you know, you know, the hardline stances that they're having, and sit together for the sake of the country. And there's no one who will lose. Eventually, we experienced this in the former regime. You know, they sat down and the country went on, but we cannot afford to continue like this. If we have this demonstration in the next 3 days, the next week, the whole of next week they call for demonstration, you know, and they'll paralyze, you know, the economy, and you know, and nothing will be happening. Schools have already closed in Nairobi, you know, and other parts of the country. So what are we going to expect next? Exactly.
I'm trying to imagine, because anytime you sit in your leadership forums discussing matters of national importance, what are some of the priorities? Because, Canon, allow me to ask you this. What are some of the priorities from the religious sector point of view? The priorities. We attend, you know, our sermons Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or any other part of the week. But what are the priority from the religious point of view as far as the development of a nation is concerned?
Victor, you know, and I'll link this to what Sheikh has said, as mentioned. Apart from dispensing the spiritual message, which is the core mandate of the religious institutions and leaders, we equally have a huge role vested on us both by the Quran and the Bible to ensure that there is good governance and that the people are taken care of well. The welfare of the people is made a priority. And so when you're in a country where the big boys, as you call them, concentrate on what benefits them, and there's very little we are seeing that concerns the Wanjiku, then it becomes a huge burden and responsibility of the religious leaders. You've heard Archbishop Muheria speak about that we've lost our sense of humanity and the inability to connect with the grassroots and to see the plight of the poor and the people. And therefore, our call, particularly to the elected government, is to ensure that they deliver on their mandate. There is a manifesto, very clear manifesto from Kenya Kwanza, of how to grow the economy, of how to spur industrial growth, of how to create jobs, and XYZ. What we are seeing is just cutting on taxation. Heavy, heavy, heavy and unreasonable taxation. And in my opinion, that is the undoing of the president currently. And unfortunately, that has made him play into the hands of Raila and just push Raila into a warm part of the swimming pool that Raila thrives on that. Because the Finance Act is affecting every nerve of this country. And from what I sense, it's not an Azimio thing. It affects all corners of the country. If you look at the demonstrations that were passed, all corners of the country, people are demonstrating because of the high cost of living, the unreasonable taxation. You cannot start running a country by taxing the people. Deliver on small successes. Let's see jobs created. Yeah. Let's see the economy stabilized. Let's see things happening and the rule of law being established. Then we should be able to, as religious leaders, then to support the president and to call on the leader of opposition to say, please allow the president space to work. So, number one, that I think is the undoing of the president.
Okay, let's take a break. I want us to come back and talk about the aspect of religion and governance. And for a very long time, I mean, quite often than not, you've been called out when things go south. Religious leaders, mko wapi, here and there. So I want us to talk about that when we come back, because it's quite important so that we put some sense on it, even as we start the third day, the 3 days of Manabano, as opposition is calling it. Stay with us. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back with more after this.
Ameumba wanadamu na majini kwa sababu moja tu, ambayo ni kumwabudu.
Kuwaumba wanadamu na majini isipokuwa waniabudu mimi, yani Allah anasema, enyi watu muabuduni Mola wenu ambaye amewaombeni nyinyi na akaumba watu walioko kabla yenu ili mupate kumwogopa.
Back.
Kwani ilikuwa nisirudi? Alichofanyiwa Jackie humu nyumbani kwenu haikuwa hisani.
Wewe, hebu fanya adabu yako. Usione tumenyamaza ukadhani tutakuogopa.
Wewe ishi bila sisi na sisi tutaishi bila wewe.
Tayari kuna keti nipeleka mbio. Nadina naye atanifanyia tantoa roho.
Na kupatia sekunde chache umfungulie Jackie mlango. La sivyo nitakuonyesha kivumbu jekiona.
Perfect. Welcome back. And we're still having that discussion on matters to do with religion and politics. What is the connection between religion and politics? It's time for us to have a conversation as a nation. The Mandamanos, what they call it, or the protest starts today for the next 3 days. So, Sheikh, religion and governance, are they twins? Can they be separated?
They cannot be separated because, there's a way that we are influenced by religion, and it's a way of life. And also politics also play a role when it comes to how, we live. It's also a way of life. Because good governance, it means, remember what Mzee Moi said. Unaona, siasa mzuri, maisha mazuri. Na siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya.
Yeah.
So, that's how, they are related now. And there's no way tunaweza tukajiita you are a Muslim or you are a Christian. Na you don't, follow the rule of law. Hizi sheria tumeziweka and stuff. So, generally they are connected, and what's important is that we should follow the rule of law generally, and serve the people. Thank you. Yeah.
Canon, religion and governance, where do they meet?
I think interestingly, that's a very interesting question, because you look at the Constitution. At the outset of the Constitution, it separates the two, but does not disengage them completely. In practice, what the clause of Kenya being a secular state simply means that allow the state to run independently and allow the religious groupings to operate separately.
Yeah.
But in terms of implementation, it means, as Sheikh has mentioned, that there is a point in which religion connects with governance. In this sense, they ought to remain neutral, non-partisan, not taking sides of any side of the political divide, so that they can play the role of what we call a watchdog, holding the government accountable. Because you read the Quran, you read the Bible, you read other religious books, they are replete with the concern for the people. And politics drives the welfare of the people. Religion holds accountable those who are mandated with the responsibility of ensuring the welfare of the people. And therefore, when they do wrong, religious groupings must call them out. To that extent, then they connect at that level. Remain neutral, but hold them accountable as watchdogs.
But are religious leaders neutral? This is just but a question to
I think that's one of the challenges we've faced as a country.
Yes.
Yeah, but we cannot also say that we are not neutral, because looking at, when we talk generally of the, we are 98%, religious. So, and irrespective of which religion that that you practice, but also, the same people who are, politicians are also followers of a certain or a particular religion, and there's no way one of my congregants will vie for and they will come seeking our blessings, and at the end of the day, we'll need to support them and come behind them, and this is where in some instances we are seen not to be neutral, and because we've been seen with certain politicians, and we've been seen with leaders, so it portrays that we are aligned to a particular a particular section of the politics. So, but generally we need to portray, and we need to be seen, because we also, as religious leaders, we vote. So I believe during the election, the Reverend voted for a certain for one party, and that doesn't mean that he's not neutral. But when it comes to national issues, this is where we are supposed to be seen not favoring one side. We should come, be in the middle and mediate on behalf of the Kenyans, and look at what are the interests of Kenyans, what are the interests, what are the priorities, and that's the role that religion plays when it comes to politics.
So where do you draw the line between politics and governance, Canon? Because it seems that it would be a very hard nut to crack when you talk of politics and religion. So where do we draw the line? It must be a very thin one.
I think for me, my colleague has explained it well.
Yes.
That on national issues, on matters that touch on the fabric of the nation, we must remain neutral. I have my personal political choices.
And that's it?
I have my preferences politically.
Yes.
But I cannot play those ones on the media here or in public gallery. Those remain private and I hold them privately. Like, for example, today, assuming President Ruto and I are friends, and as a leader of religion, I am seen with the president praying for him. I'm part of his praying team, always at State House every now and again. But then on the other hand, demonstrations are happening, and I have a national mandate to play the mediator role. How am I going to talk to Raila? He's seen me all over drinking tea in State House and driving intercessory meetings and prayers in State House.
Yeah.
Will I have the audacity and even the moral authority to go talk to Raila? I cannot. And that is what Sheikh is saying. On those national issues, remain neutral, that we can be conciliators, be able to bring these two parties on the table without swinging on one side.
And is it working? Because from what we see, the president is quite, so to speak, religious. So how does he, move from his position as a head of state, come to the religious leaders, and now to the main person of the Mwananchi, so that all these people are brought in the same bracket? Let me start with you, Kano.
Rick, I think the president has done well, and I like his religious inclinations. And I think one time my predecessor, Professor Sami, did mention that, State House is a national institution. And practice your religion, but don't turn State House into a national religious preferred setting for one particular religion. Practice your religion. Have your prayer room, have your whatever, but at the national level.
Yes.
You are the president of the Muslims, the Hindus, the Jews. You're president of the traditionalists, the Christians. Everybody retained that at the national level.
Okay, Sheikh.
Yeah, also his, symbol of national unity, and that's what he should also portray. And if they are, to have, such, what we call prayers at the State House, I think they should be interreligious, and we have such a body where, all faiths are brought in, and, at least they can, participate and feel part and parcel that, we are also contributing to, to national duties. Yeah.
At the end of the day, we've had such situations in the past where you as religious leaders, you're always called out when things go south. Sometimes the way you put it, that you have to be neutral. Why is it that church or the religion or the religious institution sometimes find themselves slipping away from the public and finding their corner somewhere, and at the end of the day they get subdued by certain political formations to an extent that they forget about their national mandate and your calling as an institution? Sheikh, you've been called out several times.
Yes, we've been called. I remember 2007, religious leaders were called. I remember even last year,
yes,
before the elections, the tensions were very high. And, but, as religious leaders, we managed, to subdue the tension. We went through the elections. We went through, the Supreme Court, and we just came out as as victorious, as Kenyans at the end of the day. So, but we are now back here, and things are not going the way maybe we thought, and it's also there's also the same call that we need religious leaders. So I think it's very important also that Kenyans do recognize that there are people who are neutral, who will come and save this country. We've done it before, and I think it's also high time, because what I'm really trying to call for is that we failed to let's say because we are not seeing it from the president to play his role as a symbol of national unity, where it's not about losing, but when we fail to follow the laws that we made, we don't follow the constitution, when we get to a point where we don't want to follow the laws, and I think the last resort is what God says, and God speaks through religion and and religious leaders. So when you get to a point we also not, or we fail to listen to the religious leaders, this also shows the extent of I don't know whether I call it anarchy, or I don't know what I'll call it, but
it shows, where we will be heading as a country.
Yeah.
Because once we fail to follow the laws that we have, and we fail to follow what religious leaders or religion says, we won't have any other result.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important for as a country to listen, and our role is not that we have our own personal interests or as religious leaders, but is to bring them together. Whoever is going to lead, whether they're going to shake their hands, as long as the country is going to to continue from where it stopped. Yeah.
Okay. Alexa, just one thing.
Go ahead.
Just to add to what Chika said, I think the political class need to understand that religious leaders will not always be singing their tunes. You look at the holy books, the prophets never spoke things that made the kings dance. They would speak things that would make them very uncomfortable. The scenario you see in this country today is that politicians, including even the head of state, want religious groupings that say things that soothe them, that look so nice to them. And that is why you'll see a section of religious groupings are pushed and are very close and cozy around power, but then another section is pushed to the end. We must recognize that the religious leaders will speak the voice of God. And when they speak the voice, they speak for the people, and they speak the voice of God. Politicians must understand that these are divine utterances, and they're speaking on behalf of the people and God. Listen. Sometimes you may not even be comfortable. Please listen. Seek to listen. And I want to urge the President, at this point in time, the numerous repeated voices from the religious groupings are a demonstration that God is speaking. His Excellency, please listen to the voice of God.
Because when you talk about, you correctly put it, Canon, but look at it holistically. In 2007, the way Sheikh has put it, it degenerated into something that nobody ever expected for us, and we are still in the process of recovering from that. Anytime we're in this situation, we stop and say, gentlemen, this is where we came from. Some of our people are still in the IDP camps, years on end. But you can also say that religious leaders also fail to some extent.
I agree.
Yeah.
I wouldn't deny that. And I think that is the danger and the terrible road that sometimes we follow. And because they're human, people who follow power, they want to follow money, they want to follow influence, this promise of appointments here and there. And it's so easy to be swayed by that. And that's why, for us, even to our colleagues in the religious space.
Has that changed?
It hasn't changed as much. A little bit it has changed, but you can see a section, and please let's not bundle the church or the Muslims. It's just a section. When a section does, there's a huge terrain of the religious space that is doing what is right. And as Sheikh did mention, even as we speak, there is shuttle diplomacy going on, and probably I want to believe these things will not even go on. There's a lot that is happening. So there are good efforts being made by religious groupings. But when a section messes up, then it makes the whole picture be seen to be really, really dirty.
That must be worrying you, gentlemen, because when it spoils, like the other day when you had the Shakahola, and by the way, the death toll in Shakahola has crossed 400 mark. That's quite sad, as at yesterday. Sheikh, when assume that you're also put together in a room. We have got the president, I'm putting an example, in a room, and you are on a round table in State House and told, okay, gentlemen, this is it. Today is 19th, we have to save this situation. And you're given the microphone to speak to the nation. What would you tell the religious, the political class from your point of stand? That, what, this Kenya has to stand. What would you tell them?
I think I'll just tell them what I've said before, and I think these words we should live, or the legacy of late Professor Saitoti should live on, meaning that a country is more important than the individual. Yes,
a country bigger than an individual.
Yeah,
that I don't think they would pick that clearly. They would really oppose that. But Canon, what would you tell them?
I'll look at Raila in the face and tell him, Your Excellency, Honorable Raila, call off the demonstrations forthwith without conditions and seek alternative means. And I'll tell the President, please step down from the ivory tower of non-connection with the grassroots. Listen to the voice of the people, sit down and talk to the opposition.
Again, assume that you're also given a position in politics as religious leaders, you're brought on board. As it is right now, it's completely separate. So how does the religion completely complement the running of governance of this country? Canon?
For me, one is to influence the values that are embedded in a practice of governance. And if I'm in that space, then it would be to ensure that we completely ensure transparency in the management of affairs of this country. We have a lot of dirty things happening in government. To ensure accountability in management of resources, the taxes we collect them from the people to ensure the welfare of the people and prudent running of this country. But there is massive corruption and looting. You look at the Auditor General's report, massive looting in parastatals, in government agencies, in the executive, and my role would be to ask, let's stem this corruption, because even this taxation that the president is bringing, we have enough resources that if you sealed the loopholes of corruption and wastage, we should be able to run this country and create more jobs. So really, governance, religious leaders and influence is to ensure prudent management of resources, good governance, obedience to the law. You hear the executive and members of parliament are bent on increasing their salaries every now and again. Zero concern to Wanjiku, zero concern to Wanjiku. And I think part of our role is to hold those guys accountable and tell them, please, tone down.
Yes, you have to call them out whenever things go south. Sheikh, what would be your point?
I think generally is, to adhere to the rule of law and generally ensure that Chapter 6 of the Constitution is, it's well practiced, and because we don't apply it, the way it should be. So I think that's very important, and to support what Canon has said. And I think also, when we talk of corruption, there's, we are also in a very bad state, and because I think if you listen to the government, why have they, taxing or, increasing the taxes? They'll tell you there are debts. And just the other day we had that, there are no debts, debts are cleared. We are not even certain, whether we had debts or, whether, so we are just at crossroads. So I think what Canon has said is something that is very important. And also once the demonstration dust settles, I think that's the way to go.
Again, whatever is happening, we have got some statistics from human rights organizations that up to this particular point, 23 people have so far died. Last evening, in one of our bulletins, a young man around 23 was shot in the head. A bullet entered this side and exit on the other side. I mean, the use of excessive force, that has been called out by the human rights activists, even you as religious leaders. You had your press briefings yesterday, different organizations also called out to the police on the use of excessive force, but sometimes it's quite inevitable. Canon?
Yeah, I think sometimes you sympathize with the police as well.
Yes.
But on the other hand, you feel that the police is also not acting professionally. Article 244 of the Constitution calls on the National Police Service to ensure that policing is practiced with professionalism, with restraint. You wonder, whereas I strongly condemn this act of looting and wanton destruction of property by the demonstrators, and I think on that front I seriously fault the organizers of the demonstrations, because it's within their mandate to tame the demonstrators, to ensure it's peaceful. But when it flips and it goes violent, you break into a supermarket and carry a whole flat screen. I mean, that's property of somebody. Police are left with very limited choices. However, I'd want to ask the National Police Service and the IG to restrain the officers. Even in the face of such happenings, please, let's not use live bullets. We have rubber bullets. and they're collecting a lot of taxes. Why are we not buying rubber bullets? You can't tell us that there shouldn't be rubber bullets. And in proper practicing of policing, why shoot at the head? Why not maim somebody? Then we are able to save life and then hold them accountable later. Not justifying killing, not justifying a destruction of property, but all these things should be done.
There should be some balance.
There should be some parameters around them, really. And that's what we're calling the IG for, to really restrain the officers. There are evidences, even of videos on the expressway. Unmarked Subarus shooting people, literally killing people. I mean, that's not what you want. Why are we killing people? They're doing wrong, yes, but you can maim them, arrest them, and then charge them in a court of law.
Yeah. Sheikh, does this worry you? Because a majority of people who are killed, I mean, it's from a very small age bracket, 19, 23, 28, thereabout, some young people. These are generations lost within a flash. So how do we change the mindset of the youth? Yes, the politicians are also doing their bit. You know, anytime they go to the maandamanos or the political rallies, the first word is vijana oye. And then wazee will come later on and wamama later on. But the first one is vijana hoye. So how do we bring the vijana hoye to a different clarion call that says that, you know what, vijana? It's politics, yes, but it doesn't have to be personal, because these politicians, they don't take politics personal. Sheikh.
I think that's so much worrying, because when we have, these are future generation. Now, when you get to a point, where, police don't, okay, generally, we can take from two aspects, because number one, they are energetic, and secondly, okay, to some extent, we cannot generalize, but some of them,
yes,
the youth, are the ones who loot and, mug people and so on and so forth. But that does not, justify for the police to use force. And, since the demonstration started, because I remember one of the instances at the Kibra when we went, when there was the church and the mosque were burnt, was there, and we had 3 bodies were to be buried on the same day, and also it was seen, as one of the things that will trigger, what will happen and stuff, and that went unreported, and then we've seen the use of force, where the police, just come shooting helter-skelter, and and I've seen the other week on the last demonstration, police vehicles just going and just shooting tear gas at people randomly, and even you would hear them telling you their demonstration, why are you working? Something that is seen, and I didn't get the registration, but the police post is written. It's something that has been seen, and they're just shooting at a skelter. So what does this mean? But coming back to the question of the youth, I think it's up to the demonstration organizers also to urge their followers to, in fact, to apply the Public Order Act,
yes,
to apply it, because we cannot.
But you also agree with me that you also have a very important role as religious leaders to bring this youth back to the rail.
Yes, we do have, we can reach out for our followers, to our followers, but, not every youth goes to a church, not every youth goes to a mosque, so, and, where we can,
Sheikh, we have got different forums that can be done. We have different forums like this one.
So generally, yes. So it's up to the organizers, and also, we also appeal to the youth not to, because my point was, we cannot solve a problem by causing another problem. Because yes, we are complaining of high cost of living, but by destroying other people's property, are we helping the economy, or we are making the economy work?
Article 37.
So, exactly.
But Victor, what Sheikh is bringing out, which I think we also understand from your question, these youth, majority of them are jobless. The age bracket you're defining, they're jobless and they're struggling. They take advantage of the demonstrations to destroy things or to make their own money, to make their own living. The other day on Bagathi Way, in front of Memorial Hospital, the Defense Forces Memorial Hospital.
Yeah.
Mugging people literally in broad daylight. I think there's an economy issue there. Of course, there is also the value issue, the values they espouse. And that's why for us, our call really is to create an economy that thrives, economy that can create jobs in the informal sectors, enable these youth to make a living so that we can reduce these things. Does not actually, that lack of a living does not justify them going to the streets, but I think it's a double-edged sword. Government has a role. Our roles as leaders, religious leaders, we have a role, but politicians who are organizing these things have a role. Why call Vijana Oye?
Yes.
And you've seen another clip where they're given 1,000 shilling everybody. 1,000 shillings with a panga. 1,000 shillings with a panga. They thrive on that. 1,000 is too much for them for a day.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Let me start with you. Your final remarks. Sheikh, on the front page of the Standard newspaper, this is what it is. Kenya on edge. Kenya on edge. Your camera, please just talk to the Kenyans out there, whichever language you'd want, talk to them.
Nafikiri la muhimu, nafikiri ni lugha ambayo Wakenya wote wataipata, and it's also official. Generally, la muhimu ni kuwa tuna jukumu la kuokoa taifa letu, na hatutasuluhisha matatizo yaliyoko kwa kusababisha matatizo mengine. Asante.
Asante. Reverend Kano.
Two things. One, to the political leaders, especially to His Excellency Raila Odinga, please find it in your heart today to call off unconditionally the demonstrations, that tomorrow we will not see this thing repeat again. Restrain your troops, restrain your foot soldiers, please, to the President. There's a lot of shuttle diplomacy happening now from the diplomats and from the religious leaders. Kindly heed. Sit down with the opposition leader. Let us talk. And finally, Kenyans, restrain yourself from destroying property. Please don't go out to the streets to be part of destruction that is planned today.
Thank you. On that note, Canon, you were just installed the other day as the keeper of All Saints Cathedral. Congratulations. What's the work for you right now? How does it feel sitting on that seat?
Thanks, Victor.
A big shoe to fit in, probably, I must say.
Thanks, Victor. Well, yeah, big, but I think I come with my shoes.
Yes.
But thank you. We're clarifying the vision, beginning now to break down actions into what we need to do, and this is part of what we're called to do. So with God's help, definitely, we will keep to the expectations of God and the people.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, and congratulations once again. You have your work cut out to steer the flock. All right. That is Reverend Canon Venance Omolo, who is the provost of All Saints Cathedral, as well as Sheikh Salim Charo, member of NAMLEF, that is National Muslim Leaders Forum. Today we're just talking about matters to do with politics, as well as the position of politics and governance and even religious leaders. Today is a very tough day even for us as journalists outside here on how we are going to balance the story so that it can be balanced. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Asante sana. Okay, so let's take a break, and we come back. We want to also talk about, as we talk about politics, let's talk about education, because that is the equalizer. And up next is the PS for in the Principal Secretary in the State Department for Tvet, as well as Gideon Morenga, who is a Tvet National Coordinator, GIZ Kenya. We want to talk about issues to the Tvet and the dual Tvet institutions and learning in the country. That is coming up shortly after this break. Stay with us.
They escaped and left Serio behind.
What can he do to me, huh? Kill me? I know he's capable of it, but I'm not afraid of him. He doesn't scare me, Mother. Anyway, I'm glad he's suffering.
You have to put that girl in her place. You can't just allow her to show us disrespect in that way. You better show her who the man of the house is.
I am here to make sure these cases are solved. Let me start with you. Las bandidas.
No, never.
Eh?
Never.
Wewe nakuona ni mzee. Mbona una tabia kama za mtu haelewi nini anafanya?
Hapana, nasema no.
Na wewe mshtakiwa wewe. Unakubali mashtaka ama bado unakataa?
No, never. Between me and this young man, who sent you? Who sent you to do you alone?
Roja, young man ni nani?
Kuna mahali wewe umetoa hata mishumari ama nyundo, nyumba sitengenezwe. Hapana, si ndio? Roja, shut up young boy.
Wewe.
Fanini mmevaa jacket sinaenda kuwa nini? Hii ni expensive na hii is very cheap. Why?
Ukiangalia this is real leather.
This is the real weather. Yes. This is the real weather. Hapa ni sungura. Okay. Kuja unisikia nanuka ng'ombe. Kuja usikuje. Wewe.
뭐요, 니들? 신부님은 또 뭐요?
알 거고 니네가 뺏어간 물건 찾아.
저 물건 찾고 싶으면 도박으로 따가.
그럼 저 평창 말대가리랑 붙으면 되는 거야?
주님, 제발 모진 십자가를 또 지우지 말아 주십시오.
You're back.
Kwani ilikuwa nisirudi?
Fanya adabu yako. Usione tumenyamaza ukadhani tutakuogopa.
Wewe ishi bila sisi na sisi tutaishi bila wewe.
Tayari kuna keti onipeleka mbio. Nadina naye atanifanyia tantoa roho.
Na kupatia sekunde chache umfungulie Jackie mlango. La sivyo nitakuonyesha kivumbu Jackie ona.
So mommy, hold on.
Make me lie when I don't want to. Make someone else some kind of unknowing fool. Make me stay.
Muhammad, that was his name. Muhammad, tume kipenzi changu.
Ameumba wanadamu na majini kwa sababu moja tu ambayo ni kumwabudu.
Kuwaumba wanadamu na majini isipokuwa waniabudu mimi, yani Allah anasema, enyi watu muabuduni Mola wenu ambaye amewaombeni nyinyi na akaumba watu walioko kabla yenu ili mupate kumwogopa.
Welcome back. You are watching Good Morning Kenya. Today's a viewpoint and I'm glad that you are still with us. Okay, from politics and religion, welcome to class. Good morning, class. My name is Mwalimu Victor. All right, on a lighter note, in studio, I'm privileged to have the PS State Department for Tvet, that is Dr. Esther Thara Moria. Welcome to the program, Daktari.
Thank you. Good morning.
Karibu sana. And Gideon Murenga, who is the Tvet coordinator, national coordinator under GIZ Kenya. Gideon, karibu sana to the show.
Thank you so much.
PS, first of all, I have to start where we should. You are one of the lucky ladies under the sun. You are appointed secretary, county secretary, and then almost hours later, the president called you for a higher calling. Let's go back. How did it feel?
Thank you, Victor, for having me this morning.
Karibu.
Well, it felt confusing almost because I had been in Embu for quite some time,
yes,
doing a lot of work, especially in the governor's task force, 100 days task force, and we had a lot of work there to do, especially on health. And while there, we did the interviews, and yes, I was appointed a county secretary on a Tuesday evening, sworn in around 6:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. So the following day, I got very busy taking over as the county secretary of Embu, and we actually had a battery of meetings from the governor's office to the boardroom.
Yes.
And then somewhere along the corridors, people start asking me, "Madam, you don't want to celebrate?" And I'm like, what am I celebrating? And then one point, we got into the boardroom, and I just looked at my phone, and I'm like, wow. So that became a turn
Yes.
of things from Embu to Nairobi.
To Nairobi.
Here I am.
How is it so far sitting at the helm of one of the biggest seats and institutions in the country? Because with education, it's the backbone of everything.
So far, so good, with its own challenges along the way. I must say it has not been rosy all the way, because getting to fit into these shoes at the helm of government cannot be said to be easy.
Yeah.
And we are in a space where we are required to produce results. So it's a question of getting into a space where you have to organize things, get things working, and it has been very, very busy. But all in all, it's coming out well, it is working, and it is going to work. So it's not been easy coming all the way here, but we are getting the threads running.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gideon, when you look at the Tvet institutions, it's actually meant to complement other institutions in the country. And as the national coordinator, GIZ Kenya, I mean, when you look at the universities, you know, they have a lot of intakes. We have got, you know, tertiary institutions, and then we have got Tvet, which is also close to the government's heart. How is it like as we speak?
Yeah, thank you very much, Victor, for that. I think when you look at our education system, the Tvet plays a very crucial role within our education system, which I think for many years this has not been, you know, taken in, let's say, in a very positive way by a lot of the public, because Tvet has kind of been seen as the second option to university education. And we have instances where, you know, once a student has gone through high school and they have not done well, and then the parent will say, now you can go to Tvet, which is a very wrong notion that we need to move away from. What we're saying is that Tvet gives you the hands-on skills, you know, that will serve the various aspects of the economy. We talk about our industrialization agenda. We cannot achieve that without a competent workforce, and we need Tvet skills, you know, Tvet institution to generate their skills. So the over-focus to universities is working negatively for us, because now everyone has a university degree that we're talking about. But then what are we saying about universities? Universities are preparing you for management skills. When you look at the structure of an employment space or an industry, how many people can take up managerial supervisory positions? There are very few. But majority of the people, you need people with hands-on skills, which we miss. So I think the notion towards Tvet needs to change. We need to move away from looking at Tvet as a second option, but Tvet as an alternative pathway. I think you're now realizing that even students, I mean, we need to position in such a way that it doesn't mean that if you didn't qualify to go to university, that's when you consider Tvet. It means even if you qualified, but you want to acquire hands-on skills to your life, then you can still pursue a Tvet pathway. Therefore, I think in terms of how it's going is, I think the focus, the PS has been pushing this very well in terms of creating awareness. Structures are in place, policies are in place. I think we just need to sensitize more Kenyans for them to realize that, you know what, Tvet will give you skills, you know, for sustainable development. It will give you skills that will serve you, that will be with you for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
P.S., you know, when Gideon is speaking, it talks about the issue of the mindset, about, you know, people who've just left high school and want to join either college, universities, or TVETs. I'll come back to the issue of the mindset and mentality surrounding the TVET. But when you talk of hands-on skills, I'm made to understand that you're also pushing for the 70% practicality skills and 30% theory. This is where perhaps we missed the point, because when you churn out people who are already out of universities or colleges, they come out as quote-unquote half-baked. Does this worry you whenever you sit on your desk?
A lot. Victor, this worries me a lot, because we are churning out graduates,
yes,
from universities, from other colleges, and what we are saying is that the industry is having to retrain them for them to perform. I have seen engineers trained in the university space where I've been over the years, and they will confess to being real engineers after being in industry for some time. This makes me sad, and when I was given this opportunity, I told my heart that I wanted to change this narrative. I wanted to change this narrative so that we will churn out people who will go out there and perform. I have my own son who told me after about 2 years in industry that now, Mom, I feel an engineer. And he trained in a university where I was myself. So these are some of the things that made me think that we need to change this narrative. We need to have youth who can actually have skills they can go out there and do.
And this has to work across the board.
And this has to work across the board. But it has to start with me, it has to start with you, Victor. So now that I have this opportunity, I come to a space where I decided that, and I was able to convince the people I am working with, that we need to change the curricula, recraft the curricula, so that we are talking about skills training. Actually, I came and found a curricula called CBET, Competency-Based Education and Training. And I told them, I want us to change this education and training to skills, competency-based skills. So that, because, Victor, there is power in spoken word. So when we talk about skilling, everybody starts thinking about skilling. Everybody starts working skilling. Then we are going to have a population of youth who have the skills. Because let me tell you, Victor, even the industry today, they are not asking you what certificate do you have. It's about what can you do.
Exactly.
What can you do?
Yeah.
Therefore, me and you are charged with the responsibility of ensuring that by the time these young people are getting out there, they can do. So that they go out there and are able to do. So that there is one that we are doing at Meru National University, Meru National Polytechnic, that I've been talking about everywhere, that we broke building and civil engineering into skills like gypsum technology, tiling, walling, painting, so that even if you graduate with that civil and building engineering, you can actually do everything along the continuum. So that if whatever industry you now go to, you can be able to do whatever it is that you are required to do there. And like Morenga said, we are not all appearing somewhere as managers. We are appearing as managers and people who can actually do the work. And let me tell you, Victor, we have also to change this notion that people who are working with their hands are less paid. Let me tell you.
That's more like talent.
We have to also change this notion and be able to also remunerate people out of what they can do, not just about the big certificates that they're holding. So my clarion call is that we have to train our youth at the skills sets where we are churning out people who can actually go there and do the work.
I'll come back, PS, and talk about the issue of your policy paper to change that narrative, because at the end of the day, you also have a mandate. You also have your your vision at the end of, because you are given a 5-year contract,
yes,
and you must deliver at the end of 5 years. But
yes,
Murenga, when you look at, when you hear PS speak, it has been a trend over the years that anytime you churn out students out of colleges, universities, you know, it flips. 30% skills, 70% theory. And then now you start learning on the job. But employers are not looking for that. They want somebody, what can you do for us, the way PS has said? How are you going to flip it? Or from the coordination desk, how is it going to work? So that at the end of the day, it's not even 70, it's 80 skills, 20 theory.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that introduces, I mean, the dual Tvet approach that we're talking about. Because, I mean, what we're saying here is that we are trying to avoid the situation where the employers are sitting on the other side and saying, you are giving us half-baked graduates. So what we are saying is that why can't you sit with these Tvet institutions and develop a joint curriculum? So if we develop a joint curricula with the industry, it means the skills that will be generated out of the institutions will be the skills in demand, what the industry requires. And that brings the dual Tvet model that we're actually working with the ministry to roll out in Kenya. Because dual, from the name, dual is 2 places. So it advocates for 2 learning places. You learn in a Tvet institution and you learn in the industry. And what we are saying, you learn in the industry for a minimum of 50% training duration. That means it can go up to as high as 70% training in the industry, while the remaining time you train in the school. So what does that mean? It means the students going through that system are exposed to the environment in the industry, to the latest technologies, to the work culture. They are ready to be employed from the first day. So there are no issues of employers saying, I have to retrain, I have to invest again in inducting this person. I give you a contract in the morning, and at 10, you have started working, because you have already trained in the industry. So that advocates for the dual training. And I mean, dual training is a model that has been operational in other countries for a long time. Germany has had it for more than 100 years. I give examples that the cars we take pride of here in Kenya, the Mercedes-Benz and BMW, we call them German machines. The skills and technology behind that are from Tvet graduates who have gone through dual Tvet.
You can't be serious.
Absolutely. Those are students.
So German cars are made by students, the Tvet students?
Oh, yes.
Graduates of dual Tvet are actually the ones who have generated this. And when you go to their even training institution now, they are thinking about even cars for the future, concept cars, they are building it. And that is exactly what you're saying Tvet can generate for you. Thinkers, innovators, you know, that creative thing, it's something, skills that can be generated within a Tvet institution.
This started from the last regime. Former president was also quite hands-on, not white-collar jobs, because if everybody wants to put on a tie and a suit and knocking every door, I'm just imagining who is going to, you know, repair the cars. And when you go to Tvet institutions, we have got engineering courses, we have got masonry, etc., etc. But let's talk about the issue of before I come to the policy paper, Banan PS, the issue of mentality amongst the youth. If I don't get the university grade and go to a university of my choice, then I'm not worth it. How are you changing that narrative?
Victor, we are here today with Murenga to speak to the youth and tell them that Tvet works, and tell them that Tvet is not for the other alternative for universities. Tvet is a pathway to a formidable career, like Murenga has said, which has worked very well in countries like Germany and among other European countries. And so we are here today to tell the youth that this is a good pathway. And we also have quite a number of other strategies in place to work out a mindset to the youth, and so that they stop looking at Tvet as the other
last option,
as the other way, because you do not make it to the straight way. Victor, we overemphasized at one point in the last regimes, for good reasons, on university pathways. You remember the many universities we introduced to, so that it looked like that is the only pathway to go to. And yet, if we have to get to our next level of economic development, we need people who can invent. We need people who can do things for industrialization. So this is the message we are taking out there as a department and together with our working partners. And we have developed a strategy that we are calling NITCAS, National Integrated Communication and Advocacy Strategy, which we are going to roll out from region to region in this country. We want to start from Western. We want to go to all the places across this country to be able to speak to everybody, both parents and the youth, actually. Because parents, we are others who think that our children are 8 when they have the university degree. And we want to change this mindset for even with our parents, together with our children. We want to tell them that training our youth into what they can do is what is going to be beneficial not only to them but to this country as well as to the world at large. Because like my colleague has said, Victor, this is the level that has plummeted these other nations to our level. Look at South Korea. Look at where they are today.
It's a skill-based nation.
It's a skill-based nation. And so until and unless we change our mindset in the same way and know that it is this skills space that is going to plummet us to this other level where we want to go, then we are not going to be there. So Victor, my department is up in the game to convince the entire of Kenya that Tvet is the way to go. Skills development and training is the way to go if this country and if our families have got to develop even economically.
You know, this conversation is coming at a time that in a month or two we'll be having university intakes in September. So I would imagine the rush to have, you know, to have accommodate students, you know, call them the big universities across the country. But that is not enough, because a university can only take so much, you know, a particular number. And this comes the issue of Tvet. I mean, Gideon, the issue of mindset, it takes a whole load of energy to convince someone that that polytechnic is good for you. That course you're going to look at university X, Y, and Z is also there. We've had situations where students who come out from Tvet or quote-unquote mid-level colleges are properly equipped because of the 70-30 ratio. But let me ask you, this can only happen when we have enough manpower, the tutors, we have the equipment. How has it been over the years? The last regime picked it, and now we are in this particular regime. How are you going to move it to the next level?
Okay, thank you for that, Victor. Let me start with the issue of mindset. Now, Tvet is everything around you. Everything around you is Tvet. Your suit, an apparel manufacturer or technician worked on it. Your shoe, a leather technician worked on it. In this studio, this table, there was a technician who worked on it. The lighting here, there's an electrical installation expert who worked on it. Our sound system, there's a sound engineer who has worked with it. Those are technical skills we're talking about. So everything around you is Tvet. So the first thing to look at is we think about those, sometimes we think it's dirty jobs. And we imagine we don't want to be associated with dirty jobs. It's not about that. We have to differentiate and see exactly what do we get out of that. So you acquire a skill, it makes everything run. Can we assess here management skill? We might not be able to assess it by saying, but all technical skills here we can see everything standing around us. That is Tvet for you. So it starts with the issue of branding, and I think that is what the government has done very well on that. Even rebranding things like the so-called village polytechnics. They are not, you know, people used to think village, then I'm going to the village, then I'm associated with the village. So now, so everything is village. Now I'm a villager, you know. So now that is one of the things that changed from branding. Now we are talking about a vocational training center. So it's all about the brand funding aspect, there are also very good demonstrable, let's say, results from students who go through Tvet. And a lot of examples are available. I would give example, in the dual Tvet system, the 7 pilot institutions that are rolling out in Nairobi. We have Thika TTI, Nairobi TTI, KIST, Western we have Bumbe TTI, Riat, Kerubo Gietai, and Kitale National Polytechnics. There are students who have come out of that. One student performed very well in the World Skills competition, a Tvet student, and she represented Kenya in Namibia in the World Skills competition. This is a Tvet student. I'll give you another example. Students who were in their second year of training at Kiambu Institute of Science and Technology doing industrial mechatronics were able to install a distillation line in one of the companies on their own, just under supervision, on their own.
Okay.
This is something that the graduates they were working with could not be able to do. They could only be able to speak theoretically of what needs to happen, but they could not be able to do about that.
Okay.
So these are just some of the demonstrable results. On the issues of equipment, now, sometimes I feel like...
Let me take a break. Let me take a break because that's a huge topic that I want to talk about, equipping institutions, the issue of curriculum and even funding, which is also key because they go hand in hand to make Tvet, the dual learning and Tvet institutions to be what it is. Let's take a break. All right, so class is in session. Today we are putting aside politics, kidogo. Let's come back with more after this break. Stay with us.
The stage is set for a showcase of global talent as Kenya hosts the World Rugby Under-20 Trophy for the second time from the 15th to 30th of July at the Nyayo National Stadium. This year's edition will see 8 teams battle over 4 match days for a place in the World Rugby Under-20 Championship in 2024. Catch the matches live on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
You're back.
Kwani ilikuwa nisirudi? Alichofanyiwa Jackie humu nyumbani kwenu haikuwa hisani.
Wewe, hebu fanya adabu yako. Usione tumenyamaza ukadhani tutakuogopa.
Wewe ishi bila sisi na sisi tutaishi bila wewe.
Tayari kuna keti yonipeleka mbio. Nadina naye atanifanyia tantoa roho.
Na kupatia sekunde chache umfungulie Jackie mlango. La sivyo nitakuonyesha kivumbi ujekiona.
All right, welcome back. And thank you so much for staying with us today, talking about Tvet institutions, that is dual training in Tvet institutions with PS, that is Dr. Esther Thara Moria and Gideon Murenga, who is a Tvet National Coordinator under GIZ Kenya. So, PS, let's talk about the issue of reconstructing the curriculum, which at the end of the day is tailor-made to suit particular students. At the end of the day, we'll also churn out fully baked students. So what is your ministry doing to reconstruct the curricula? Because that is what's very much important for the dual training in Tvet institutions.
Thank you, Victor. We have decided as a department to break down the curricula, like I said earlier, into skill set, so that If you are doing, like I said, a program like building and civil engineering,
right,
then we have broken that curricula into skills, like I said, like gypsum technology, walling and tiling, and you can do like 3 or 4 of them, then you graduate at the micro level. Then you can do more of the skills and graduate at medium level.
Yes.
Then you can go all the way, do all the skills in that curricula, so that you graduate now at the highest level with a diploma, which we call level 6. All right? So all the curricula that has been, where we have been training students, and they are getting those so-called electrical and electronic engineering, mechatronic engineering, those big names, they are good. But we want to make sure that even as you are being called an engineer of this and that, you can be able to do each and every skill along the continuum. So that is what we are doing. That is one thing we are doing about the curricula. Then we have woken up, in quotes, the national polytechnics as the qualification awarding institutions.
Okay.
They have had that mandate for some time, but it had not been operationalized. So what we are doing also, together with our regulators, Tvet and Kenya National Qualifications Authority, is assessing the national polytechnics and being able to qualify them as the qualification awarding institutions, so that if it is a qualification that is going to be trained with an industry near Kisumu National Polytechnic, then we will be able to train our youth together with the industry in Kisumu and be able to award the qualification in Kisumu National Polytechnic. And if it is a qualification that is in Ekerubo Geitai, where it is all about tea, we are able to train all the skills in that institution and be able again to qualify them at Kisii National Polytechnic. So what we are doing is that we are making sure the curricula befitting certain areas with the industries around them are crafted in such a way that we are able to train the students at Ekerubo Geitai to be able to operate the machinery in the tea industries. And once they have been able to do that curricula, they are able to be qualified and certified at Kisii National Polytechnic, which are also, this is very important also for us to note as Kenyans, we have brought up the bigger examination body in Tvet called CDAC, Curriculum Development Assessment and Certification Council.
Yes.
That council is going to be the headmaster for the National Polytechnics, so that whatever is happening at the National Polytechnics space to operationalize that curricula is also oversighted by CDAC Council.
Yeah, but that's quite interesting, because you realize it's in the past, certain institutions had some courses that had to be scrapped because they were not tailor-made to suit that locality. You find in an institution somewhere in Northeastern doing production or tea plant operations, something of that side, which is not relevant to that locality. But when you look at the entire structure, I mean, the aspect of coordinating between the institutions of now higher learning, do they have a correlation that you can move from Tvet and slowly and gradually graduate into a university and now upscale your skills? Do you have that? Do you have that?
Of course, Victor.
Yes.
You can do everything and all that you need to do at this level of the diploma level. We have universities like Technical University of Kenya, Technical University of Mombasa, and you can be able to upscale to that level. And actually, we are having an active conversation with those universities where we want to have a pathway, an easy pathway, let's call it. So where you can be able to, where we can be able to have the transfer of the qualifications to that level. So we are speaking with KWE, who are the regulators of the university space, and ourselves, and we want to put that continuum in place so that after you graduate with a diploma at the Tvet institutions, if you so wish, you can move on to the university and the PhD level, if you so wish.
That sounds like a good deal. That sounds like a good deal.
Yeah, actually what you're saying, exactly what the PS has put it, is that Tvet lays a foundation for lifelong learning. And therefore, it does not create a dead end. And I think that's one of the perception issues. We just talked about mindsets. I think there's a belief to the public that once you go through Tvet, your life is finished. You cannot progress. Now, you go through a Tvet system, you have an option of moving to the labor market if you want and start working. But there's also an option of you can still progress, and go to advanced level of training. And again, another advantage when it comes to Tvet is so Tvet gives you the advantage, PS has talked very well about it, the short courses. Because these short courses give you an advantage of you acquiring competencies within a very short time and going to the labor market. Within a very short time, you acquire skill, you go and start working. And that now explains to you why right now, the world we are moving into, a Tvet graduate will start earning before that university graduate starts earning. Because by the time you complete your 4-year course, the Tvet graduate has completed a 6-month course. They are already in the labor market. So that's the flexibility we are talking about that is going to give now Tvet graduates more advantage. Also, and generally, this is part of the job creation agenda. Because we're talking about youths who have no skills, they have no jobs, and they have no skills. But the advantage of acquiring Tvet skills is that you can get employed, you can advance your career, or maybe, you want to advance your education to another level, but you can move to self-employment. How many technicians do we see over weekends? They have their toolbox. Over weekend, they are serving clients, their individual clients. Weekdays, they are working for someone else. Those are the advantages that Tvet gives you. For management skills, unless you work as a consultant, I don't see how much of yourself you'll be able to.
Absolutely.
Another continuum, Victor, that is existing there is, as we speak now, I have told you that we have gypsum technology in Meru. We also have university graduates in that space who have decided during their long holidays to come to our institutions and be able to get to train in the skills. So even when you are in the university,
you can still go to a Tvet.
You can come to our Tvet.
And that's why you call it a dual Tvet training.
That's a different terminology, Victor. But what we are saying is, we were talking about the continuum between our institutions and the universities. Yes, you can even be at the university level, and it is happening in our institutions today as we speak, where you feel you want to acquire a certain skill. Why not? Come to our institutions and we'll train you. And I have said, in the space of the gypsum technology in Meru National University, we have university students there who are training in that skill during their long holidays. So yes, that continuum between Tibets and universities will coexist actually spontaneously or progressively.
Madam PS, the issue of funding. It's a very dicey issue here. What is your ministry doing about it?
My ministry has come up with a very pragmatic funding model, which has spoken to the space of equity very well. We realize that there are those or young people who have remained outside because of the funding, and the president the other day announced a funding model for TVETs and universities, where if a family and this is completely vulnerable, then the government is going to fund 80%. That is 80% of the money is going to be by government funding, and 20% will be a loan from HELP. And then we have those who are needy. They're going to be funded 70%. The first group is vulnerable. The second group is needy, and the needy ones are going to be funded 70% by the government scholarship. That's a scholarship, and 30% by the help loans, which of course you pay after training and a lot of them. And that continuum goes all the way to the most vulnerable, or to the most vulnerable, which means nobody should stay out of school. But as we come to the space where me and you, Victor, exist, and we can be able to a large extent to fund our young people to be in college, then that allowance is also available. So this is going to be arrived at, Victor, through what we are calling a means testing. This has existed in the ministry for a long time. Means testing means that we are going to look at your family background.
Yes.
Are you single? Is it a child without parents? Is it, does one parent work or both of them? What is the education level of this child's parents? And that is why what we are calling it means, the family means, which once arrived at, then we as a government are going to decide at what level each and every learner should be funded.
Absolutely.
That is one way. The second is we are working with a lot of working partners, like GIZ here, where we are speaking into working with one another. We have the Germans on board, we have the Canadians on board. Yesterday I was speaking to USAID, among others, where as much as possible we are able to look at what is possible, what is doable, so that we can be able to fund this space.
Imagine JZ not in collaboration with the ministry. What have been the ripple effect? I'm looking at the negative side of it.
Yeah, I think let's appreciate that the partnership is there, so we don't look at the negative side of it. We look at the positive. But yes, we have very good collaboration with the ministry, and I think just going to the dual TVET that you've just asked about, it's good for the public to know what we mean when you talk about dual TVET. I mean, we're talking about two learning places for the students. You train sometime in a TVET institution, and you also train in an industry. I'll give a typical example what we're doing with the 7 institutions in Nairobi. So your first term of training, you start in a TVET school. The second term of training, you go to an industry. The third term, you come back to school. The following year, term 1, you go to the industry. So you alternate between the industry and the institution in train. That's why we call it dual. So you learn in the industry and in the TVET school. So that means competencies that can be transferred in the industry are actually transferred practically in the industry by in-company mentors. So you find that this student is not just sitting and getting lectures and theoretical sessions in class. They actually getting hands-on training. So the industry gets involved in one of the issues we talked about, curriculum. So there are no issues of, again, relevance of curriculum, because they contribute to, they determine the curriculum to be trained. If there is change in technology, they call in for curriculum revision, and there's a provided period on when curriculum needs to be revised. When it comes to implementation, they are part of the ones implementing and supporting their training. So students go to the industry for some time, and you see this deviates from our traditional way of teaching, where you go for attachment for 3 months. Actually, attachment, there is no attachment between the student and the employers, and we all know that. Because you go there, you do some clerical work, serve tea. At the end of the day, the manager writes for you a very good letter, report, then you go back and graduate. We know that. So there is no attachment. So dual training deviates from that. There's actually a very deliberate intention by the employers to train you. They even have a list of competencies. They know what needs to be trained. If it's an automotive workshop, today a customer brings in a car, it has an issue on the braking system. The student that day, they will learn about the braking system practically. Yeah, so that is what dual training means. Even it comes to selection of students, the industries take part in shaping and identifying which students need to go for which particular course. And you know why? Because we have an issue in this country where people are taking courses because the parents said so, or because the richest person from my village comes from that place, or because, you know, the guy driving the most expensive vehicle did that course. And then along the way, what happens? You discover that this course is not cut out for me. How many of us are doing, are in a career field that are far away from what we trained?
Wengi sana, so to speak, the Kenyan language. Wengi sana. Madam P.S., I'll give you the I'll give you the last one. You have got a 5-year contract to achieve and to deliver to Kenyans. Kenyans are watching, and I'm also reminded to ask you that do we have Tvet youth and Mandamano? How do we get this youth out of the street? Because today it's a sad day for our country. A majority of people who are going to go on the streets are youth. How are you going to bring them to the bracket? In 1 minute, if you can kindly.
Victor, my trajectory, like I said, is to ensure that, first of all, the house is in order, that I have the skills in place, I have the institutions cut out for the training, and we as a department, as a ministry, we are working very hard also to make our institutions as attractive to the youth as possible, and like we are doing now, and many other strategies that we intend to put in place to speak to the youth and to tell them to get out of the streets, to get out of the drinking dens, because that is also another big problem, and come to our institutions so that we can skill them. So, Victor, what I have wanted us to do very well first is to put our act in place. Make sure the curricula, the assessment, the certification, and the institutions are in place. Then we go out, like we have started doing now, to speak to the youth like we are doing now, and we are going to go into other strategies. We are going into roadshows, we are going into regional meetings to be able to tell the youth, now you can come to this institution. It is very attractive because I have said we even have a Tvet beautification strategy in place, so that we are telling these students this is a nice place to go to, and we have got everything that it takes. We have got the equipment, because we do. Victor, we have the equipment. We have the equipment to train them. We are even recrafting the trainers. We have spoken to all these working partners that I spoke to, and we have agreed with our Kenya School of Tvet. In case you did not know, Victor, we have an institution called Kenya School of Tvet, which is training our trainers to be absolutely in place to be able to skill our youth. So that when we go to speak to them, we have a strategic place where we are telling them to come into.
Daktari, your background is you're a teacher, you're a lecturer, and time is of the essence.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I think that's the place to end it. I'm afraid that we'd have continued this for a very long time, but we have to take a break because GMK has to continue. Thank you so much for joining us. That is Daktari Esther Thara Moria, who is the Permanent Secretary, who is the Permanent Secretary, State Department for Tvet, and Gideon Murenga, Tvet National Coordinator, GIZ Kenya. Class dismissed. We're taking a break. GMK continues after this break. Stay with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Class dismissed.
Goodness. They escaped and left Sergio behind.
What can he do to me, huh? Kill me? I know he's capable of it, but I'm not afraid of him. He doesn't scare me, Mother. Anyway, I'm glad he's suffering.
You have to put that girl in her place. You can't just allow her to show us disrespect in that way. You better show her who the man of the house is.
I am here to make sure these cases are solved. Let me start with you.
Bandidas,
Las bandidas.
No, never. Never.
Wewe nakuona ni mzee, mbona una tabia kama za mtu haelewi nini anafanya?
Hapana, nasema no.
Na wewe mshtakiwa, wewe unakubali mashtaka ama bado unakataa?
No, never. Between me and this young man, who sent you? Who sent you to you alone?
Ngoja, young man ni nani?
Kuna mahali wewe umetoa hata mishumari ama nyundo, nyumba sitengenezwe? Hapana, si ndio? Ngoja, shut up young boy. Kwa nini mmevaa jacket sinaenda kuwa nini? Hii ni expensive na hii is very cheap. Why?
Ukiangalia this is real leather.
This is the real weather. Yes. This is the real weather. Hapa ni sungura. Okay. Kuja unisikia nanuka ng'ombe. Kuja usikuje.
give me the strength to do what I must.
Abraham, do not harm your child. For now I know that you fear God, seeing that you've not withheld your son, your beloved son. 뭐요, 니들? 신부님은 또 뭐요?
말 거고 니네가 뺏어간 물건 찾아.
형 물건 찾고 싶으면 도박으로 따가.
그럼 저 평창 말대가리랑 붙으면 되는 거야?
주님, 제발 모진 십자가를 또 지우지 말아 주십시오.
You're back.
Kwani ilikuwa nisirudi? Alichofanyiwa Jackie humu nyumbani kwenu haikuwa hisani.
Wewe, hebu fanya adabu yako. Usione tumenyamaza ukadhani tutakuogopa.
Wewe ishi bila sisi na sisi tutaishi bila wewe.
Tayari kuna keti nipeleka mbio. Nadina naye atanifanyia tantoa roho.
Na kupatia sekunde chache umfungulie Jackie mlango. La sivyo nitakuonyesha kivumbu Jackie ona.
You when you're gone. Do what you want as long as you're with me. Say what you want as long as I hear you call my name. I'm still in love with you, boy.
Let us go to the land of love. When I come home, everything should be alright. So mommy, hold on.
At exactly 53 minutes past 8 a.m. on this beautiful Wednesday, we are pleased that you have chosen to stay tuned to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Vivian Degwa, and the Kenya Institute of Public Policy Research and Analysis held the 6th regional conference last month from the 21st to 23rd, and I am pleased to be joined by Dr. Rose Ngugi, who is the Executive Director of the institution, and she is here to just let us in on how far they have gone in this and what is being done so far as the growth and development of arid and semi-arid lands is concerned. Dr. Rose, welcome to Good Morning Kenya.
Thank you very much.
I can see that we are matching. It's like we came from the same house, you know?
It looks like,
the polka dots, the coat. I love it. I love that we were in spirit.
Good.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so it is right to just mention that the arid and semi-arid lands occupy over 80% of Kenya's landmark. So the growth of these areas is really an important conversation to be having, don't you agree?
Yes, it's a very important conversation that we should be having. You know, in economics we say that one of the factors of production is actually land. So when you have over 80% of the land in arid, it means that we have one of the factors that can grow this economy actually in arid and semi-arid areas. And it means that if we are able to exploit fully the opportunities that it has, we can actually take this country to a different level. One, in terms of diversifying the sources of growth. Two, in terms of reducing poverty and inequality. And three, in terms of generating revenue for the government. So exploiting the 80% of our land means a lot to even meeting the goals that we have put under Vision 2030. We aspired to meet 10% of growth, but we are only utilizing less than 20% of the land. And it's for this reason that we found it necessary to focus our attention on the Assal areas because we see the future of this country development agenda very much focusing on exploiting opportunities in the Assals. Yeah.
When we talk of arid and semi-arid areas, it is clear that these are the dry areas of the country. And before we get into talking about the growth, the economic growth and development, maybe just to get to know, is there anything that is being done concerning the food deficit in these areas?
Anytime we have drought in this country, the most affected is the Assal areas. They are affected because of their economic system. They rely on livestock quite a lot, and they have also a very high level of pastoralism, which means that anytime the drought hits, they don't have a cushioning factor. For example, for grazing, and therefore when the pastures are gone with the drought, actually their economy actually collapses. And this means that you either don't have means of meeting your livelihoods, or you don't have a source of food, and therefore you have to rely on either assistance from outside. But they are actually, we realized that from the conference that there are some arable lands inside the Assal area which can actually be exploited for food production, and that would help to diversify the sources of food in the Assal areas. In addition, we have situations in Kenya where you have plenty. For example, in Kinango, plenty in the highlands, and when you go to the Assals, there is very little. And one of the things that you find is the distribution element. So you have plenty food and scarcity at the same time. And one of the key things that creates this kind of situation is even information. There is no information that is, going to the farmers where there is plenty, and the farmers where there is plenty, they are also not able to aggregate their product that they want to sell, such that when they get to the market, they also can make something for themselves. You see, if I'm just a farmer, I only have one gunia of cabbages. I would like the next farmer and the next farmer, if we can join all hands, we can make 1 ton of of cabbages, and that way you can be able to take it to areas which have deficits. So creating awareness, information asymmetry in terms of the markets and what is needed, at what time, would help us to actually say at any point in time that we don't have situations where we have scarcity and plenty at the same time. But in addition to that, there is quite a lot that the government is trying actually to do in terms of, the Kenya Meat Commission that was started a long time ago, and it has been revived even recently. One of the things that it was meant to do is actually to provide a ready market for the livestock, for the arid areas, such that if you are able to sell to Kenya Meat Commission, then Kenya Meat Commission is able to distribute also to the other side. So the distribution element is what actually is a key area that we need to concentrate on.
Okay, I get that. So if you could just take us through some of the take-homes from the conference that you had last month.
I'll start by saying that we had a very, very successful conference. We were able to bring in almost everybody from all the counties, and most importantly from all the Assal counties. These including both the youth, including government officers, including private sector, and also including partners who operate in these areas. So we had also a very good turn-up for the youth. We gave them a space to discuss their issues, and they were able to come up with the areas that they feel is critical to them making a difference to the Assal areas. As you know, it was also graced by the
Deputy President.
The Deputy President. It was really an honor for us, and it was also a signal that there is goodwill from very top to actually accelerate growth and development of Assals. That is the signal that we got. So it also gave us the next thing, and that is a starting point of these discussions, because for us we provided a platform for all of us to gather and discuss issues. But as His Excellency, the Deputy President told us, it's a beginning of a discussion, and we should have started it long time ago, not now. But since we have started it, we need to move forward, And for us to move forward, we all need to work together, whether we are in the media, whether we are in KIPRA, where we are doing our research work, at capacity building, whether we are development partners, whether we are youth. We all need to actually work together, because all of us have a space in accelerating growth and development of the Assals. So from the conference, we talked about so many things, and I think I may not manage to tell you everything, but I can give you some key areas that I feel touch on the bottom-up economic transformation agenda that touches on it. And one of the areas that is very critical is agricultural transformation, as far as the beta is concerned. And what we realize is that there are quite a lot of opportunities, in as much as the livestock is the key driver of economic activity. We realize that there are opportunities for beekeeping, apiculture. There are also opportunities for fishing. You have Kilifi as a coastline, you have Turkana, there is a lake, you have Lake Bogoria and the others. So blue economy is a key area that we need to exploit. And of course, there are about 700 square kilometers of land that can actually is allowable, which means that we can do agriculture. We can produce food with it, So all that we require is, first of all, is to look at aspects of enhancing agricultural productivity for the livestock, which means that we need to ensure that there is pasture adequate for the animals. In addition is to grow the entrepreneurial capabilities, because we realize that even aspects like pottery it can also do very well in Assal areas, but also cultural change, such that you don't necessarily remove people from what is their ecosystem, but you try to bring in something additional which they can actually practice and move forward with. So that way you'll be able to really enhance agriculture, not just in the highlands, but also in the Assal areas.
Yeah.
The other thing that is very clear from the better economic transformation agenda is creative economy. And with creative economy, it's very huge. And what came out is that Assals and arid area especially, they are very rich. They have cultural resources, very rich in cultural resources, very rich in cultural heritage, very rich in, beadwork. If you talk about beadwork in Kenya, the first thing that comes to your mind is maybe Turkana area, maybe Masai area, and the like. And then you ask yourself, if you go to outside Kenya, where can you buy these commodities? You find that the market is very limited, So, and the thing that need to then to come in is how do we either standardize so that we meet the standards at the international market level, and then make sure that the quality is such that it meets the needs of the outside customer, diversified needs of the customers. That way, you will therefore be able to expand the market. You'll be able to tell the women who are doing beadwork that there is a market beyond Kenya, there is a market beyond the region that you're operating, there is a market, but you need actually to do it in this form. Make sure that the standards are met, make sure that there's some quality control that is, so that you can sell your product. But in addition to that is that there are talents that we need to manage. You know, the sportsmen and women actually come from this area, and we need to nurture that talent because it's a resource for the region. Knowledge management. When we say that, when you talk about development and you want to bring in initiatives into a county or community, the first thing we need to understand is the system has been operating, which means that there is an indigenous knowledge that is already existing in that community. What we need to do is to tap into it and ask ourselves, I don't think anybody in there was taken to school to do beadwork. No, it is something that has been nurtured over time, So we can actually tap into indigenous knowledge and be able to exploit opportunities, make them commercial. Let them not remain at traditional level. It's a way of doing things, very good, but can we commercialize it so that you get to uplift the standards of living of this community?
Okay. Just how far in are we in terms of the progress in accelerating development in these areas at the moment as a country?
At the moment, I would say that there are quite a number of initiatives. You know very well that the largest weed power plant is actually in the Assal areas, in Turkana area. You also know that we have the LAPSET. You remember the LAPSET project?
Yes.
Which is supposed to bring not just a road, but is also supposed to bring a railway and also a pipeline. There's quite a lot that is happening as far as infrastructure development is concerned. But there are still gaps.
Yeah.
In the sense that You'd want to feel that I can leave Nairobi at a certain time, and I arrive in Marsabit, I go to Moyale, I go to Lokichogio, I go to Lamu, without having to blink that is the road okay? Is there security? Will I get internet connectivity? Will I be able to transact? So there's still more that needs to be done to ensure that internet connectivity is actually accelerated. There's still more to be done to ensure that road infrastructure and networking helps us to move around the area. It's a very massive area, which means that there's still a lot of investment that is required in the area for road infrastructure. And of course, when that is done, what you'll find is that you will be able to attract even foreign direct investments because this is an area that you have museums that are yet to get to a standard where you can say, let's get to the international market and let's sell this, what we are having. This is an area that you have fishing at Turkana area, but you can have a very nice fish processing plant that is there. This is an area where you have at Sano collecting minerals, small minerals here and there, but you can make it commercialized, right? So the infrastructure development is going on, and there is quite a lot of initiatives that are happening. Dams are also being put across. There's a dam actually in Kitui, another one in Makueni, and we also know that there is a dam that is also coming that His Excellency the President is still negotiating to ensure that it starts off. So these are initiatives that are going on, but we still need to make more strides to facilitate accelerate growth.
Okay, you've pointed out the gaps that are there and also mentioned what needs to be done, you know, what more needs to be done. What are some of the challenges that you would say you are facing in order to make this a success?
Okay, let me start by saying that devolution has made a difference. Because it has put decisions on where we want to go to the communities at the ground, right? But we know that private sector needs to play a major key role. The government can do just as much to facilitate in terms of creating an enabling environment. So when I say that we need the infrastructure, it's actually to facilitate, to create an enabling environment, Because when you create an enabling environment, private sector should come in. As long as private sector feels that I can make my profit, I can make a return at the end of the day in whatever I'm trying to do. I can move in very safely with my equipment and I can set it up and tomorrow I'll find it safe. That's all I want. I want to have. I can say start my irrigation scheme in a certain area, and actually I'll find I can harvest at the end of the day. So creating a neighboring environment is what is going to ensure that private sector comes in. And it's able to enhance investments. Government can just do as much, but private sector has a key role that it needs to play.
Yeah, you've mentioned investments, and I want to get into that. What are some of the investment opportunities that are available in these areas, the Assal areas?
There are quite a number. Like I've said, first of all, this is an area that we are saying we can get solar energy. How much have we invested? This is an area that we are saying we can get wind power. How much have we invested from the private sector? This is an area we are saying that we need to accelerate the lap set. If we have a public-private partnership, is an opportunity that can be grabbed. It's an area where we have seen archaeological sites, we have seen museums, but they are yet to get to international standards. It's an investment that can be done. It's an area that I've indicated, for example, the beadwork. But it is so concentrated just to serve actually the community. Yet I would like to see, for example, when I'm flying with the KQ, I don't see that beadwork. That does not reflect Kenya. I would like to see that it is maybe a beadwork that is reflecting Turkana, reflecting Masai, reflecting whatever. But you need to invest in terms of ensuring that the products are at a certain standard. So the investment opportunities are enormous.
They're enormous.
Yes.
Yeah. As you say, they're enormous. So what is KIPRA doing to ensure that you create these opportunities?
Let me say, KIPRA has one main role to play, and that is to ensure that we generate the evidence and we help to shape the policy framework. When we do that, the expectation is that the policy framework will be able to attract the investment. Say, for example, recently we worked with the Kenya National Council for Leather to put together the policy framework for national leather for Kenya. What does that do? It means that you are already providing a platform for private sector to telling the private sector, this is where we want to go as far as leather industry is concerned. This is what, as a government, we are going to provide for you. We are going to do A, B, C, and D. For you, then you can come in and take advantage. So as an institution, that is where our role is. For example, now from this conference, what is it that we are going to do from a lot of information that we gathered from it? We are going, for example, to relook at the policies that are existing, to see whether they have gaps that need to be addressed so that the issues that have come from the conference are able to accommodated, and therefore we have a policy framework that is accommodative of all the needs that we require to develop the region.
Okay. Now the Digital Economy Initiative for Africa aims to ensure that every individual, business and government in the continent will be digitally enabled by the year 2030. Just how important is that, and what role does the digital economy play in the growth of arid and semi-arid areas?
Very good question. Very, very good. And good in the sense that we are talking about it in the post-COVID period. Before COVID, digital was just there.
Yes.
But I think digital economy actually came through to tell us that business continuity can actually be collapsed if you don't have a digital whatever, if you are not in a digital economy. But it doesn't mean that it is not there in our Vision 20. In our Vision 2030, we talk about a knowledge-based economy through digitization. And what you see there in Beta is the superhighway digital infrastructure that the government wants to put, as well as digitizing about over 80% of government services. What does that mean? It means that, first of all, I can get government services legally, get them, I don't have to travel maybe very far distances, If I can even put it to say that with digitization, you can manage even to monitor my health. I saw that there is an initiative actually to even have some gadgets which you can monitor and be able to to remind the mothers that it's time to go for clinic. Yeah. That is very, 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 very innovative. And what it does is that it does not leave you as an individual in a helpless situation. You're able to get access to the services. When we talk about even education, we realize that if you have digital platforms, you don't have to think so much about maybe physically having the teachers on the ground. We know that this is an area where sometimes teachers fear to go and stay there. But with digital technology, it means that you can actually manage to continue giving a high quality education to the peoples on the ground, even through digital platforms. But more importantly also is the e-commerce that's coming in. So so maybe I want to sell my goat, I want to sell my livestock, I want to sell maybe some purpose that I've just cultivated. With the with the e-commerce, it means that you are able to know where the market is. You're also able to know the customers, and probably the customers that you have, you know, what do you call them? They follow you all the time. They'll ask you, "Is the honey ready?" You don't need to travel. All you need is to just get the information that I need a restocking of my honey, and something like that. So it has quite a lot of potential to actually enable networking and connectivity for this vast land. And that in itself would help to grow the activities themselves.
Okay. How are we improving financial inclusion in Assals?
Yes. Financial inclusion, if you look at the statistics recently released, they say that over 8 or 9% Kenya is financially included. And if you look at the differences between arid and the other arable areas, you notice sometimes on average, the differences are not as much. And then when you get inside to ask yourself, but we don't have as many banks there, but we don't have as many, then you realize that a lot of the financial inclusion is coming also from tapping into fintech, right? So for example, when you have M-Pesa, it means that you are able to find financial inclusion because you can do transactions not necessarily through the banks, but you can do transactions through your phone. And the good thing also with the phone is that it uses the USSD code. So in some situations, it's not necessary that you have to have internet connectivity, but you can use the USSD code. So financial inclusion has grown in the region. First of all, because of the fintech. Fintech has made a difference in the Assal areas. But recently, you've seen that there are quite a number of banks that are also opening up. Initially, branches used to be very expensive. So they are agencies. They have gone into the agency kind of model. And with the agency kind of model, it means that if you have a shopkeeper in, say, Moyale, he can open up an agency for Cooperative Bank, it can open up an agency for KCB Bank. So what does that mean? It means that you're able to financially include even those who are not included. Yes.
Okay. As we wind up because of time, during the conference you had around 289 youth in attendance representing all these arid and semi-arid areas. Maybe very quickly, what are some of the opportunities available for the youth, and how do the youth of these areas explore the opportunities that are available for them?
Again, a very good question, because the youth also came up with their own communique on what is it that they are looking for. And one of the things that they are saying is that we have, for example, the National Youth Council, which is supposed to bring the youth together. But at the ground, they need to feel it, so that they are mobilized in a systematic way to really either create awareness, but at the same time to even drive them to opportunities that are there. They also indicate that they need training, entrepreneurial training, so that they are able to tap effectively, as well as to have financial support for innovation. They are innovative, but innovation requires a lot of research. Innovation requires a lot of risk-taking. Innovation requires you to have financing for you to get to the next level, of business, making it a business, So in their communique, they are requesting to be financially supported. And we can now see, for example, in the Assal Fund and other funds that are available, Youth Enterprise Development Fund, it provides them with an opportunity actually to tap into such kind of funding to help them to move on forward with the innovation that they want to bring in supporting development of the Assal areas.
Okay, we'll have to end the discussion. We need to be, gone. Thank you so much for the opportunity and coming through to talk to us on this matter. All right, this is where we call it a wrap right here on Good Morning Kenya. Right now we head straight to Parliament for the live sessions.
The stage is set for a showcase of global talent as Kenya hosts the World Rugby Under-20 Trophy for the second time from the 15th to 30th of July at the Nyayo National Stadium. This year's edition will see 8 teams battle over 4 match days for a place in the World Rugby Under-20 Championship in 2024. Catch the matches live on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
You're back.
Kwani ilikuwa nisirudi? Alichofanyiwa Jackie humu nyumbani kwenu haikuwa hisani.
Wewe, hebu fanya adabu yako. Usione tumenyamaza ukadhani tutakuogopa.
Wewe ishi bila sisi na sisi tutaishi bila wewe.
Tayari kuna keti yonipeleka mbio. Nadina naye atanifanyia tantoa roho.
Na kupatia sekunde chache umfungulie Jackie mlango. La sivyo nitakuonyesha kivumbi ujekiona.
Kiswahili kitukuzwe.
Kazi bora tunataka, la heshima na nidhamu. Porojo zenu ondoa, hatutaki unafiki.
Kwamba katika kufanikiwa maishani kwa mwanadamu yategemea masomo ya mtu.
Ufanisi wa mtu unategemea masomo yake.
Ufanisi wa mtu pia hutegemea yale mazingira ambayo anaishi.
Nini maana ya kitawe?
Neno lenye maana zaidi ya moja.
Neno lenye maana zaidi ya moja. Amepata
private schools that sat for that assessment in the year 2022 academic calendar, and she also seeks to know how many of those learners graduated to junior secondary school. Nominated Senator Mariam Omar Sheikh also has a query for the Cabinet Secretary, and this one speaks to the attire of Muslim students in some public schools, and she claims they're not allowed to wear the hijab and trousers in addition to the prescribed school uniform, and here she is addressing the female learners, and she has specifically cited the Kenya High School and Alliance Girls High School as some of the schools that are denying Muslim students this right. Nandi County Senator Samson Cherargei has 3 questions for Ezekiel Machogu, the Cabinet Secretary Education. One, financial year 2022-2023. The other is a status update of the delocalization program as far as the transfer of teachers from their native place of birth to other localities is concerned. His third question is concerning a lifestyle audit